Why do you think Oda chose to reveal Gunko in this arc? And what is the real purpose behind the Holy Knights arriving in Elbaf and attempting to destroy it? We all know that by the end of this arc, the Holy Knights will be defeated and return to Marijua. Otherwise, if they completely conquer Elbaf, it would mean they defeated the Straw Hats and Loki, which makes no sense narratively. The fact that by the end of this chapter, the Holy Knights' ship was already destroyed strongly hints that they won't escape with the Elbaf children. Yes, Oda revealed Loki's true character, the powers of both Loki and the Holy Knights, and we will probably see even more. New abilities from Emu or new power-ups from the Straw Hats. But Oda could have revealed all of that in many other ways. So the real question is, how does this arc actually affect the overall story? Because that is what truly matters. And I believe I know the answer. The most important part of this arc is not Loki, not the Holy Knights, and not even Emu's Domi Reversi. It is the relationship between Brook and Gunko, because that relationship gives the final war a much deeper and more emotional meaning. I also want to talk about something important. The fact that Brook seems to be far stronger than what Oda has chosen to reveal so far. The first hint comes from his previous bounty. After Egghead, Oda revealed Dorian Broggy's bounties of 1.8 billion berries, which were clearly increased due to bounty inflation over the years. If we take Brook's original bounty of 33 million from 50 years ago and adjust it for inflation, it becomes roughly 594 million. If we then add the bounties he has earned after joining the Straw Hats, he reaches around 944 million, which is a massive number. That is the level of a Yonko's third commander, and honestly, that makes a lot of sense. Brook is extremely efficient in combat, but because he plays more of a supporting role in the story, he hasn't had any major one-on-one fights yet. Even so, he's constantly one-shotting most non-threats throughout the series. He has saved Straw Hats multiple times, was the first member of the crew to directly fight a Yonko, and even fearlessly called Big Mama little girl to her face. Even in this chapter, Brook was the first character to clash with Emu, and he was able to block a powered-up attack from Gunko. Oda has been leaving hints all along. When you look at the parallels between Emu and Brook, it becomes clear that there's a much bigger connection here that will be revealed soon. And no, this doesn't mean that Brook is overpowered. Of course he isn't. His abilities are simply linked to the soul and to soul manipulation, much like Big Mom's powers and Emu's abilities. Because of that, Brook's power is a natural counter to theirs, in the same way that Luffy's Devil Fruit was the perfect counter to Enel's Lightning. It's also important to remember that the one crewmate Luffy always wanted from the very beginning was a musician. I am fully convinced that music will play a crucial role in the final stages of the story. Ever since the Elbaf arc began, everything connected to Brook has felt strangely suspicious. And in reality, as I mentioned before, these strange signs have actually always been there. The first thing that feels wrong is Brook's power. His devil fruit, the Yomi Yomi no Mi, is usually translated as the revive fruit, but that translation doesn't fully explain its meaning. Yomi refers to the underworld, the land of the dead, and Yomi Gaeru means to return from that place. Brook's ability is not just about coming back to life, it's about crossing into the world of the dead and returning with something still tied to his soul. Because of this, Brook is not truly alive in a normal way. He exists as someone who passed through death and came back changed. This explains many of his abilities. Brook can leave his body behind and move as a soul. He can pass through walls and physical objects. Even his ice powers feel unnatural, and they strongly resemble the abilities associated with Nojuro, one of the Gorosei. Then there's the strange case of milk. When Luffy heals by drinking milk, it makes sense. Luffy follows cartoon logic, and that fits perfectly with Nika and his absurd nature. But Brook healing with milk does not make sense at all. He has no organs, no stomach, and no system to absorb nutrients, and yet it still works. Brook's encounter with Big Mom supports this idea even further. He directly challenged her soul-based powers and attacked her homies without fear. This is not how most pirates behave when facing Big Mom. Brook acted like someone who deeply understands how souls work, like someone who's faced a similar power or authority before. Another very important detail appears during Kuma's flashback. We're shown the destinations of every Straw Hat after they are sent flying, except for Brook. His destination is never revealed. This is extremely strange. It suggests that Brook may not have been sent anywhere by Kuma at all. Instead, he may have been drawn to that place by the abyss itself, because of something still connected to his soul. That place, Hungaria, fits Brook perfectly on a symbolic level. Hungaria represents hunger, decay, death, and emptiness. These themes are deeply tied to Brook's character. Brook constantly makes jokes about being hungry even though he has no stomach. His visual design also closely resembles Japanese yokai Gashadokuro, giant skeleton spirits born from famine and mass death. This brings us back to Gunko. Her flashback shows a younger Brook, someone she clearly trusted and cared about. It seems very likely that Gunko only became a devoted weapon of God after Brook died. Even now, under Emu's control, Gunko is still able to recognize Brook through his music and through her memories. In One Piece, music is never random. Luffy's heartbeat is the drums of liberation. Scopargaban's technique against immortality is described as a symphony. Bink's Sake is a song that carries memories from the past into the future, and we already talked about the song New World. There's also a song of Vanderdecken that strongly hints at the existence of Davy Jones. The character most connected to music is Brook. Now let's talk about the relationship between Gunko and Brook. At a certain point in the story, Gunko was the princess of a kingdom, and her real name was Shuri. Brook was the battle convoy leader of that same kingdom, and Shuri was presumably the one who killed her father, the king. Because of this, Brook has resented her for his entire life. But of course, we already know that this is most likely not the truth, especially in an arc where we're shown another Kingslayer, Loki. His entire country hated him for killing his father, yet we eventually learn what actually happened. The parallel here is very clear. Also, even though Brook seems to hate her, Gunko clearly cares about Brook as she told him to run away from Imu. Even in that small flashback we saw, Gunko was crying and was truly devastated by what happened to her father. I want to dive deeper into what may have actually happened back then. There are many possibilities. Maybe Imu used Domi Reversi on Gunko, or maybe on the king himself. Maybe the Holy Knights manipulated the situation, or something similar. Either way, I strongly believe this event is connected to Imu, especially because this reveal is happening in Elbaf, where we already saw Loki killing his father who was being controlled by Imu. Even though we still don't know the full truth about what happened in that mysterious kingdom, we can already predict one thing. Gunko is innocent, and Brook has the wrong idea about what truly happened during that time. Even without her past with Brook, she's already deeply connected to the Straw Hats. We saw Gunko listening to music through TD headphones, something that immediately connects her to Brook. Her favorite song is New World, which is Brook's song. At the same time, her greatest fear is Nika, directly linking her to Luffy. That alone is strange. But when you look at the lyrics of New World, it becomes even more suspicious. The song is about a hero who will become a king. Brook even mentions the sandals on his feet. We all know who that song is really about. The middle of the song talks about the world changing, and Brook says it will change once again. It's a song about determination, dreams, and never giving up. So how is it possible that a holy knight, someone aligned with the world government, has a favorite song that is clearly about Luffy, piracy, and freedom? Oda has been leaving hints like this about Gunko since the very beginning of Elbaf. And on top of that, Imu chose Gunko's body to arrive in Elbaf instead of using a pure-blood celestial dragon. That choice alone feels suspicious. Visually, Gunko resembles a giant bat, and we know Oda loves to foreshadow future events through color spreads and cover pages. In the cover of chapter 788, Oda drew Brook playing music in front of Perona while demonic bats fade away. What if that was foreshadowing Brook saving Gunko from Imu's power, and from a demonic contract? Imu was also clearly worried that Gunko's memories were starting to return. We've already seen how easily Imu killed Saturn for failing his mission, so how do we know that Imu won't do the exact same thing to Gunko simply because she tried to help Brook? This could happen either after the Elbaf arc, or even much later in the story. Gunko must be saved. Brook might not know the truth right now, but he'll definitely learn it eventually. Their shared history has to be revealed, and after that happens, Brook will try to save her. But the real question is, how can he possibly save someone who's directly serving Imu? Even if Brook somehow manages to cancel the contract between them, Gunko would either die instantly or turn into an 80-year-old woman, but that won't happen. And yes, I truly believe that Brook can cancel Imu's contracts for two main reasons. First, Oda has clearly hinted at a deep connection between Brook and Imu. Second, I do not believe that Loki is the only character with the ability to fight against Imu's soul-based powers. This kind of exclusivity almost never happens in One Piece. Take Robin, for example. At first, she was introduced as the only person who could read the poneglyphs, but now we know that this is no longer entirely true. I believe the same thing will happen with Loki's Devil Fruit. Other characters, including Luffy, might also gain the ability to cancel Imu's contracts. And Brook, of all people, is a perfect candidate for this. He's called the Soul King for a reason. I believe Brook, through the power of his Devil Fruit, and possibly its awakening, may have the ability to remove someone's soul entirely. How could Brook cancel the contract between Gunko and Imu? The answer may lie in something Brook explained long ago. In chapter 456, titled The Devil from the Frozen Land, Brook talks about the importance of salt in separating a shadow from a body. He explains that salt breaks the strange barrier between the body and the shadow. We also know that when Moria stole Luffy's shadow, that shadow retained a small part of Luffy's consciousness. It wasn't just a copy, it carried fragments of his will and personality. And that's exactly what seems to have happened to Gunko. So one possible scenario is this. Brook uses large quantities of salt to weaken or disrupt Imu's darkness. Salt, tied to the sea, has always been portrayed as something fundamentally hostile to devils and unnatural powers. Another possibility is Brook's music. Brook's music directly affects souls. We've seen it calm, control, and even damage enemies on a spiritual level. If Imu's control over Gunko is soul-based rather than purely physical-based, then Brook's music could interfere with that connection. And then there's a third option. Based on the fact that Brook retained his own skeleton after dying, exists while technically being dead, and is known as the Soul King, I wonder if there's a scenario where Brook, after awakening his devil fruit, could save Gunko by extracting her soul from the body currently possessed by Imu. The real question is, how far gone is Gunko? How much irreversible damage has Imu's control already done to her soul? If she isn't saved, her fate may mirror that of Saint Saturn, total destruction of both body and soul. Her only possible escape, short of outright defeat, could be through Brook's unique power, a form of true soul extraction. But if Brook removes Gunko's soul, where would it go? To answer that, let's go back to the beginning of the Elbaf arc. We learned that Lilith had Jinbei bring a large box from Egghead, a Stella Vegapunk clone. Once repaired, this clone would still need something essential, a mainframe, a consciousness, a soul. With the original Stella gone, and assuming the mainframe is damaged or cannot be destroyed, what remained? Lilith, the embodiment of evil. Given full free will, yet still being a Vegapunk, Lilith could choose to upload her own consciousness into the Stella clone. That decision would leave behind an empty, soulless body. This is where Brook will play his role. Brook, carrying Gunko's soul, a soul once trapped in a body possessed by a devil, twisted into evil, could transfer it into a body that was once evil but is now empty. A perfect inversion. Gunko survived. She is liberated from Imu's control, reborn into a new body, free at last. A soul saved by the Soul King. Otherwise, as I said in the beginning, I don't see the real reason why Oda created all of this. Why did he choose the Holy Knights to go to Elbaf? Why Gunko specifically? Was it really just to reveal their powers? And why save Vegapunk? Yes, a lot of important information was revealed, but if the Holy Knights are simply defeated and retreat, it wouldn't change anything in the story in a meaningful way. The only real consequence would be Loki being freed, but Luffy was already going to do that anyway. That's why I believe the true reason Oda introduced the Holy Knights is Gunko and her connection to Brook. Gunko will most likely survive and eventually aid the Straw Hats in the final war. And more importantly, she may possess critical knowledge about Marie-Joie, knowledge that could be essential in defeating the seemingly invincible Imu. That's it for today. Let me know what you think about this theory in the comments.